let's turn our attention then, shall we, to British politics this hour. We are this morning awaiting the announcement of the new shadow cabinet following on from the selection of Kemi Badenoch as the new leader of the Conservative Party. Well, let's speak to Andrew Bowie, who has been an outspoken Badenoch supporter throughout. Good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. I suppose the big question is whether your loyalty could well be earning you a seat in her shadow cabinet this morning. Are you expecting a call?
Look, that is not the big question at all. The big question is where the Conservative Party goes now that we have Kemi installed as leader, and the excitement that I think has been generated by her election, and the fact that we can now really turn our fire on the Labour Party and get into a place where in 4 or 5 years' time we can turn the tide on this failing government and present the British people with a credible alternative, and that will be the Conservative Party under Kemi's leadership.
To be clear, though, you're not saying you don't expect a call today.
Look, the appointments to Shadow Cabinet are entirely at the preserve of the leader. I'm not going to get drawn into any speculation. This morning, I'm just delighted that we are now at the end of the leadership contest, that Kemi has been elected, and we can turn our fire on the opposition. That's the Labour Party and Keir Starmer, but also reform in the form of Nigel Farage, and indeed the Liberal Democrats and the SNP as well, because we need to win back seats across the country if we're ever going to get back into government.
How do you think Kemi Badenoch will be making those decisions? She'll presumably have been pondering it yesterday. We know Boris Johnson, of course, based his cabinet very much on loyalty. He was trying to manage a very unmanageable party through that. Is that going to be the same challenge that Kemi Badenoch will be facing? Do you think we might see Robert Jenrick in there? Or do you think she will be choosing those people based purely on the best person for the job, on merit alone?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be the latter. She has said that she's going to be offering positions to all of the other candidates in the leadership. That includes, of course, Robert Jenrick. And, of course, there has to be an element of loyalty in any team to the team leader to actually get things done. But she's going to be appointing people to the shadow cabinet on merit, people that she genuinely believes are best placed to do the job. And let us not forget, the job that we have is a huge one. The task is absolutely gargantuan. We've only got 121 MPs. We are much diminished from where we were prior to the election, and if we're going to regain the British people's trust, as we must do if we're going to take the fight to Labour in the next election, then it's going to take the best talent that we have at the top table to start delivering for the Conservative Party and indeed the country, and that's the basis on which Kemi will be appointing people to the shadow cabinet.
And do you think, obviously you're a supporter of Kemi Badenoch, but you know it's no secret some people describe her as a bit tricky, a bit abrasive. Do you think that those traits will make her the right leader to be able to not only unite a party that, as we know, has been through a turbulent time, but also to make her popular with the British public? Because at the moment she's not hugely popular with them.
I do wonder sometimes these phrases that are bandied around about Kemi. Had she been a man, she would be known as determined and somebody that knows her mind. And so I worked with Kemi as a junior minister in the Department for International Trade. She was my Secretary of State. Yes, she knows her mind. Yes, she knows what needs to be done. And yes, she has a high work ethic that she expects others to follow. But I think she is absolutely the best person to lead this party forward. She cuts through. She's a great communicator. She is determined, and she will not shy away from taking the fight to Keir Starmer at the dispatch box every Wednesday. And I, for one, am looking forward to PMQs this week to actually see how that falls out. I
agree with you there. I'm also looking forward to PMQs, which will definitely be interesting. I just want to know, because, I mean, the Labour chairwoman, Ellie Reeves, she said that Kemi Badenoch was adding insult to injury by describing Partygate as overblown. And here we have the new leader of the party, less than 24 hours into the role, already making controversial comments like that. Was that a gaffe, do you think, or did she have a point?
No, she absolutely had a point. What she was saying was that we should not have criminalised normal human behaviour, everyday behaviour, such as going for a walk, sitting down in a park. These things, in retrospect, I think we all would agree was the wrong thing to criminalise, which is what sort of laid the trap for where Boris and his staff fell in. So that's what she was saying the other day, and I stand by her comments.
What do you make of the controversy surrounding these taxes on agricultural land, on these wealthy landowners and farmers. Rachel Reeves saying it's unaffordable, frankly, to allow farmers to avoid inheritance tax. But I'm always slightly more interested by what the Institute for Fiscal Studies have to say on things. They seem to be sort of impartial, fairly sound observations. They've come out and saying that this is going to be significantly more generous. They're going to be treated significantly more generously than the rest of us, and actually still more generously treated than farms used to be in decades past, and says it will affect a remarkably small number of the most valuable farms. So it sounds as though the IFS is supportive of this policy from Labour.
Look, we're at a point right now where in agriculture it's actually very difficult to get young people interested or indeed into that sector. And what these measures will do will actually make it harder for a farmer to pass down his farm to the next generation. And that is going to have a huge impact, not just in terms of how we manage land and agriculture in this country, but actually for our food security here in the United Kingdom. Because what we will see is farmers selling off their land, try and divest themselves of the land that they have to try and avoid paying this tax. And we're going to be in a place that we have less food grown in the United Kingdom for British people to consume. So it's bad on a whole number of levels, but, you know, it's just bad economics as well. This entire policy, this entire upset that's being caused is only going to generate something like £500 million, which, when you look at the scale of what Rachel Reeves is seeking to do, is very little indeed. So I think it's an ideologically based policy. It's not going to raise as much money as she actually needs, and it's going to damage our food security and the future of farming in this country. So for all of those reasons, it's a very bad thing indeed.
Just lastly, I want to ask you about this Dawn Butler row. So Keir Starmer doesn't appear to be removing the whip from her after she retweeted, frankly, a racist post describing Kemi Badenoch as a white supremacist in blackface. Now, she later unretweeted it. But do you think that she should go? Do you think that she has a place in the modern Labour Party supporting a comment like that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Of course the whip should be removed. If this had been a Conservative MP retweeting a comment like that, you can only imagine the howls of opprobrium that would be coming from the other benches. The fact was that tweet was racist, and Dawn Butler retweeted it. So Keir should show what he's made of and should absolutely withdraw the whip. Language like that has no place in modern political discourse in this country. So he should do the right thing, remove the whip, and indeed apologise for her even considering that was an appropriate thing for her to retweet. A responsible, publicly elected official retweeting comments like that is just wrong.
OK, Andrew Bowie, at the moment without portfolio, perhaps that might change in the next few hours. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
In other political news, the Chancellor has defended her government's inheritance tax rate on farmers. We were just talking about it there, despite a major backlash from the agricultural sector. She's claimed Britain cannot afford for farmers to pass on their estates without paying inheritance tax. Reckon we've done all right so far. But meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer will today announce a £150 million crackdown on illegal migration and demand that criminal gangs are fast-tracked through the courts.
Oh, well, let's get the thoughts now of the former Chief of Staff to Nadhim Zahawi, James Price, and regular on the show. Good morning, good to see you again.
Good morning.
First of all, response to what Andrew Bowie was saying there. He's obviously a big Badenoch fan. Agree with him on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Andrew's a class act. Let's hope he's got a good job. And I think that it's good of him to come out and call out Dawn Butler. I'm lucky enough that Dawn Butler is my local Member of Parliament.
Interesting.
And I've asked her for some replies to her on various constituency things. I haven't heard back. And she did this video for the start of Black History Month, where she called herself the chosen one and said that various other people were weird and violent and didn't matter. I asked her if that can include some of her constituents like me, and I've not had a reply yet.
Oh, gosh. OK. Well, interesting that Sir Keir Starmer has decided not to remove the whip from that.
Weak,
Has that shown a spineless element?
Well, it's not like he's lacking for members of Parliament. She's not got any kind of big brief or anything like that. As I just said then, it's not the first comment that she's made. And it just shows, you know, if the Conservative Party is the first party to have female leaders, Asian leaders, black leaders, maybe that the Conservatives are not this evil, nasty, bigoted group that the left tries to portray them to be. Why is it that we've managed to get all these different kinds of leaders? Because we elect people based on merit, not on the colour of their skin. And yet it seems to be the left who are obsessed with these things still. Let's stop talking about it and start talking about the content of people's character again.
What about Starmer's announcement today, these fast-track court appearances for people smugglers?
I mean, Look, we always want secure borders. That's a very important thing. We've not had secure borders for too long. Anyone can see that with the small boats problem. The Conservatives didn't manage to get a handle on it. I've got absolutely no confidence that Labour will either. Why is that? There is a whole legal morass tied up with things like the ECHR, but also a lot of our domestic law as well, that is preventing us from being able to deal with these things and to prevent people from coming over. We don't have any kind of disincentive.
I saw a very interesting thing yesterday. I was getting on a plane from Belfast to London, and on comes, before anybody could get on the plane, we had to assist on a migrant, an illegal migrant, on board with 2 Border Patrol officers.
Really?
Yeah, and I said, wow, how regular an occurrence. I said, oh, there'd be 2 or 3 every day. Yeah.
Where were they going? Back to look back?
And we pay for that. We pay for 3 British Airways airfares to get them back over or wherever they're coming from. And this guy, I tell you, he looked a bit of work. He looked quite very professional, fit as a fiddle. He looked a thug. He actually, quite interesting. And I thought, well, he's not there just being illegal. He's running a business, or he's doing something to do with extortion.
And everyone can see examples like this. I've been on a plane coming back into the UK from the Middle East, and the person sat next to me was rehearsing a script on her phone, saying what she had to say to border guards and pretend that she was coming in on a student visa and all these kinds of things. No one can seriously tell me, 25 years almost after the tragedies of things like 9/11 that completely changed, for example, the way we get onto aeroplanes, or the fact that we have one of the best navies still in the world, that we cannot defend the English Channel from small dinghies coming across. It's obviously not a physical inability to do this. Why is it? It is this morass of lefty lawyers and people like that who frankly want people coming over here for reasons of, I suspect, political reasoning. Do I believe that Keir Starmer is able to do any of this? Do I think he cares? Do I think he understands? No. Who are the people that suffer? It's the people at home who've so many hotels near where they live. Their tax money is being spent on these hotel rooms for people who've come over here because we're seen as a soft touch. We're not bringing in the best. And, of course, when we bring these people in, we're stopping the young women and children who are stuck in refugee camps across the world, who are really those in the most need. We're preventing them from coming over. And we're also preventing the best and brightest migrants from coming here, starting businesses and growing and things like that.
Talking about the